All right, in this video, we're going to learn how to convert an equation of a circle that is in general form to an equation in standard form. So now general form is right here. Ax squared plus by squared plus cx plus dy plus e equals 0. That is quite long. That is the general form of a circle, or the equation rather. But we want to learn how to convert an equation in general form to standard form, which is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. And remember, h and k are the center, and r is the radius. All right, so if you have not seen my video on how to write equations in standard form, please see that video. I go quite into detail about standard form of a circle. All right, so we want to take this equation and convert it to an equation that looks like this in standard form, and we want to find the center and the radius. All right, so let's try this one here. So now the first thing we want to do, we want to group off our x terms and our y terms. So this is already kind of grouped together. Sometimes it may not be, but I want to rewrite it. What I want to do, I want to leave a space after my term here. So I'm grouping my x terms, and I'm going to leave a space. And I'm grouping my y terms, and I'm going to leave a space there. And if my constant was not already on the right-hand side, I would move it. So E would be my constant. So if the 6 were over here, I would have just moved it to the right-hand side. But in this case, it's already on the right-hand side. All right, so now I want to kind of use what I know about perfect square trinomials, or completing the square rather. So if you remember how to complete the square, we use the formula b divided by 2 squared. Remember that? That's the formula for completing the square. So in this case, our b, because we got two separate problems here at this point, is 2x and 6y, or our b is just 2 and 6. So we want to divide this by 2, because that's our b, and raise it to the second power. So we're completing a square. So think about completing a square. All right, so negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, and negative 1 squared is a positive 1. Same thing here. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So that's a positive 9. And the numbers that I use to complete the square, I want to add this to the other side. All right, so just to recap, I separate my x and y terms, then I complete the square for each set here. If you're not familiar with how to complete the square, please see my video on completing the square. All right, I'll link it in the bio of this video. And now I want to factor each one of these. And remember, when you complete the square, these are called perfect square trinomials. So to factor it, you would just take the square root of your last term. Since this is a minus, bring down my first term. So that would be x minus 1 squared. Or you can look at it this way. 2 factors of 1 that equal negative 2 when you add them together. Negative 1 and negative 1. When you multiply it, you get positive 1, but when you add it, you get a negative 2. Or you can just say, okay, I'm going to take the square root of this number, bring it down. Whatever sign you have here, bring it down. And whatever variable you have here, bring it down. All right, but if you're familiar with completing the square and perfect square trinomials, that is what I'm doing. All right. Next, factoring this side here, that would be y plus 3. Just take the square root there. Have a squared here. This is a plus because I have a plus here. This is a minus because I have a minus here. It's all equal to, I just add what's on my right-hand side, and that will give me 16. 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 9 is 16. Now I have rewritten this equation in standard form, right? Now I want to find the center. The center is just H and K right here. So my center is 1. And remember, it's going to be the opposite because I already have a minus in my formula there. So that would be -3. So that's the center. The radius, since we have radius squared, the inverse of that is taking the square root. So I take the square root of 16. So the radius is 4. All right, so I have rewritten this equation in standard form and found the center and the radius. All right, so let's try this problem here. What if you only have an x squared term or just a y squared term and you don't have all of the terms? Same process, is actually just a little shorter. So I'm going to rewrite this one in standard form, but I want to find a diameter as well instead of the radius. So I still group off everything. I'm going to group off the x squared. Since I don't have anything else, I cannot complete the square, so I'm just going to leave it. But I'm going to group off the y squared minus 12y, and I have to complete the square right here. This 85 is on the left-hand side. I need to move it. So I'm going to add 85 to both sides. So remember, you move anything across the equal sign, it changes the sign. So back to the basics here. All right, so I'm just going to bring down the x squared here. That'll be plus. I want to complete the square. So again, b divided by 2 squared. So this is my b, because I'm just completing the square for this one, because by x, I don't have a x term here. All right, so -12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 squared is 36. So that will be plus 36. And I'm going to add that 36 to the other side here. All right, so now I want to factor this. So this will be y minus 6 squared. I just take the square root of what I used to complete the square. And I have a minus here, so I bring down that minus and then my variable. That is equal to 85 plus 36. That is 121. I hope I'm correct because I don't have my calculator handy. All right. And so now I've written this in standard form. I'm done. All right. My center, all right, what is it? I don't have an h. So if you don't have an h, it's 0. So the center would be 0, 6. The radius is the square root of 121, which is 11. So that would make my diameter twice that. And I cannot spell diameter. Diameter. There we go. My diameter would be 22. And that is it. I've rewritten it in standard form and found the center, the radius, and the diameter. All right, so I would like for you to try this one on your own. Go ahead and pause the video and try it on your own. And you're probably like, why did she give us the hardest one to try on our own? But remember, your constant is on the right-hand side. Everything else is on the left-hand side. I want you to find a diameter, right? The radius will not be a perfect square. So write it as simplest radical form. So go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause the video and try this one on your own. All right, so you should have gotten 9 for your center, and for the diameter, you should have gotten 4 square root of 5. If you got it, great. If not, I'm going to show you how we got to that point. All right, so I'm going to move this 18x over. So x squared, since that's a positive 18x, when I move it across the equal sign, it's going to be a negative 18x. Then I'm going to have my space here. Plus y squared minus 2y, and I have my space, so I'm grouping them off. Since this constant is already on the left hand side, I leave it. All right, and then completing the square. B over 2 squared, negative 18 divided by 2 is 9, 9 squared is 81. Negative 2 divided by 2 is 1. Is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1. I'm adding those. So 81 and 1. Factoring. This would be x minus 9 squared plus y minus 1 squared. They both have minuses. Take the square root here. I'm going to add this negative 62 plus 81 plus 1. That is 20. All right. And I want to write this in simplest radical form because it is not a perfect square. So simplest radical form, you find two factors of the number. One is a perfect square. So two factors of 20, and one of them has to be a perfect square. I could break it up into 4 times 5 because when I multiply, I get 20, and 4 is a perfect square. So when I write it in simplest radical form, that would be 2 square root of 5. All right. So when I take the square root of it, that is what I'm going to get. When I write it in simplest radical form. So instead of like 16, the square root of 16 is 4. When you take the square root, you're going to write it in simplest radical form. All right. So my center is 9, 1, which is what we have here. The diameter, well, this is the radius. The radius is 2 square root of 5. So my diameter would just be twice that, which is 4 square root of 5. Remember, I only multiply what's on the outside of my radical. So I double this, so that would be 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 5, which is 4 square root of 5. And that is my answer. So hopefully you understand how to convert from general to standard and find the center and the diameter of a circle.